Now, you always have to have a background to see a figure. You just can't do it without it. You know, that means the figure and the ground, just like the space and the solid. These two are in some way inseparable, and they go together. Now, you can find this in magnets and electricity. You know, a magnet has a north and a south pole, and a battery has a positive and a negative pole. Did you know that? There's no such thing as a magnet with one pole. That's to say, if you equate the north with the south, with the north that is and the south with isn't. You know, you can't have... That's right, Wrinkle. You can't chop a magnet in two. You know, you just get another north pole and south pole at the end of each piece. You know, in the same way, a current will not flow through an electric circuit until a negative pole is connected, as well as the positive, because the current does not wait in the wire like a water in a hose and then begin to flow as if it was like a faucet, like a turning on the nozzle. There won't be any current in the wire at all until its endpoint, which is the negative, is established. So what I'm trying to get into here is the basic logic that there isn't a sort of fight between something and nothing. You know, the famous words of Hamlet, to be or not to be, that is the question. It isn't about being or not being. It's not a question. You know, it just is. You can't have a solid without space. Therefore, you can't have what is without what isn't. You can't have a figure without a background, and you can't have a background without a figure. You can't have a space without a solid, because imagine nothing but space. Just space, like space with nothing in it forever and ever, and there you are, you're something in it. You have the whole idea of there being only space and nothing else at all is just not only unconceivable, it's right, Wrinkle, it's meaningless. You know, because it's about contrasts. You know what we mean? Like black in comparison with white. You know, life in comparison with death. You know, pleasure in comparison with pain, and up and down. And you notice all of these things, they come together they're just one thing. It's just one thing. You don't have first something and then nothing, or first nothing and then something. Something and nothing are two sides of the same coin. They are what is. They're defined by each other, like a coin. If you file down tails and smooth it out and smooth out the heads on the head side, it's still exactly what it is. The positive and the negative. It's what is up and what is down. They're together. It is one. And in this way, you could say that the nothing is the force whereby the something can be manifested. Without space, yeah, you'd never see the stars. You know. You think, you know, in this physical world, there's something. And then matter has various shapes. We think that tables are made of wood. You think the parts as being made... You know, okay, look. Is a tree made of wood in the same way as a table is? Now, that would be stupid, wouldn't it? Because a tree is wood. It isn't made of wood. Wood and tree are two different names for the same thing. But if there's in the back of your mind this idea, this notion as a root of common sense that everything in the world is made of something, made of some kind of basic stuff, you know? You know, people always want to know, what is that stuff, you know? Everyone's on this quest to discover, what is this stuff? What is the world made of? What is this? What is that? You never find it. I mean, you're just gonna... you're gonna find... You know, you're just gonna find stuff and shapes and... When you turn on the microscope and you really look at things, where you thought there was some stuff, you'll find instead just some form, some pattern, some shapes. You'll find these molecules, and you go in beyond the molecules and you'll find atoms, and you go beyond the atoms, there's electrons and positrons, and between which the vast spaces in between them. And we can't make up our minds as to these, whether they're waves or particles or wavicles, or they're very tiny. And if you want to ask what that stuff is made of, what makes an electron, you might as well be able to further, it's just some pattern. It's just a pattern. It's a pattern. A moving pattern which can be described and measured, but we never get to any stuff for the simple reason that there isn't any. There never was. You see what stuff is, what stuff actually is, when you see something unclearly, or if it's out of focus, it becomes fuzzy. You know, as we say, stuffing in a stuffed animal, a plushie, like clay. Like when we look at it with our eyes, it just looks like goo. Like you can't make out any kind of significant shape, but when you put it into a microscope, you suddenly see all these shapes and these patterns, and it becomes clear and focus as a thing. You can go on and on into that and into the next, and you'll never find anything except for form and shape and pattern. Because think of stuff. How would you even be able to describe what stuff is without being able to describe what it isn't?